All right, Bang Bang, welcome to episode 4 of the Dave Portnoy Show with Eddie and Company. This is 4. We're on 4, Dave.
Oh, it's 3, but whatever.
No, 3 was Nitty Gritty. That was last week. Highly anticipated show here.
Yeah.
Like, highly.
Yeah.
Listen, a lot of people were like, I don't know if it's going to live up to the hype. You know, hype is big in the Barstool world, but you're not really hype stuff up unless if it, meets up.
And I told you what it was about, so when you saw what it was going to be about, were you like, oh, my God?
I was like, oh, my God, before you even said anything, because it's rare for you to send me, you have a great story for the podcast in a text with great capitalized.
Yes. I very rarely hype up or anything, but this one is like, holy shit, what a story.
All right, Dave. I think the people are ready.
All right, so now I'm feeling pressure just on the fact of how much I built this up. But I also, it's such a core overarching storyline of Barstool that I don't think there's any way this can disappoint. So let me set the stage for you, Eddie. This was, and I will say when it happened, I'm saying the gasp, everyone. It's like I react better when I'm in the heat of the moment. So this has been a little bit removed. So let me get the time frame. So it's Tuesday night. Yes, Tuesday night. Went out to dinner. I was on a date. Went out to Catch. Catch is a restaurant in New York across the street. Have dinner. I'm walking out of the restaurant, and a girl is like hanging out on the side of the bar by herself. And she's like, do you recognize me? And I'm looking at her. I'm like, no. And I didn't. I'm like, oh, my God, what's going on here? She's wearing a hat. She takes it off. She's like, what about now? I'm like, still no. Like, no clue who this girl is. I'm like, I'm usually not mean to girls. It's like, but I could tell it wasn't like, hey, remember me? Let's hug it out. She was like saying it with anger. It's like, oh, you don't recall like saying that I'm a slut and this and that. I'm looking. I'm like, Sam Ponder? So it's fucking Sam Ponder. And when I say she fucking ambushed me, Eddie, she fucking ambushed me. Like, she was waiting. Now, so she just happened to be at the restaurant. I happened to be at the restaurant. She saw me. She was waiting for me to leave and fucking like spider monkeyed me. So once I'm like, Sam, it was on. Like, I'm talking 1 hour, jaw to jaw at Catch. 1 fucking hour. To the point, like, I know the people at Catch a little bit. I don't know that they knew her or knew anything about. Like, they were going to offer me assistance. Be like, Dave, is this okay? So to recap the conversation, first of all, I will give credit to Sam Ponder. I did not think she would have the balls to do what she did, which is like, get in my fucking face. Like, she was ready to go. And I was in a fight before I even knew, like, I had been hit with 9 punches before I even knew the fight, like, began. It's like ding, ding, ding. And I'm just taking haymakers. And around we went on, like, the entire debacle of our existence together. A lot of the facts, I think, were like out of place, and either she misremembered or lied, or she thinks I lied. But it went on and on. A lot of it started. So my interpretation of how it went down, she seems to think, and again, she may be willing to come on like this podcast and talk about it. She's like, you never talked to me, you never did this. And we'll get into that. I'm like, well, we tried to reach out when it happened. So I'll try to start at the beginning and recap the conversation or her perception of events and the part in, the van talk getting canceled and me being in a crowd with like a fuck Sam Ponder chant and like me calling her kid a rat and like all this shit, everything. There was nothing left on the table. It was 1 hour, like to the point the Catch person halfway through made her put on a mask because she wasn't wearing a mask. Like, we're like arguing face to face in masks. The girl I was with, I thought she fucking left. She just went away. She, I think, was like, oh, this must be somebody has like some fucking like history with in terms of dating. No. It was arch enemy, maybe number 1 or like top 3, top 4 in the history of Barstool overlying themes. So her thesis is like, it seemed to be, she was convinced she had nothing to do with Barstool Van Talk being canceled, which is a preposterous theory. But what she essentially said was like, well, when I found out the show was happening, I tweeted out, the conversation, what you guys said in the past. That's all I did. Like, I did that, and then I was out of it. I'm like, well, first of all, that's something. Like, you started the ball rolling with those tweets. And I was like, ESPN's messaging to us is like, you don't want the show. Like, Sam Ponder, that's why you did it. She's like, she was mad at ESPN. She's like, they threw me under the bus. Like, now, can you really argue that? Because you did tweet it out and put pressure. But she's like, no, I just had to say, hey, you guys can do your show, but I want everyone to know who these people are. A little bit different. She also was convinced I or us were like obsessed with her before the Barstool Van Talk. She's like, you guys talked about me all the time. You did this, you did that. I'm like, we really didn't. Like, we maybe mentioned you 2 or 3 times. You heard the clip. I owned up to it. It's like, yeah, I said you had to stop being a prude and slut it up. She actually, at some point, she's like, that's a compliment. You wouldn't want like your wife to be like that? I'm like, Sam, that's what I've been saying about it for the past fucking decade. If you really look at what I said, I didn't even call you a slut. I used the word, and I'm like, by the way, you used to use the word slut. What is that breathing? Is that you, Eddie?
No.
Do you hear that in the headphones?
Yeah.
What was that?
I don't know. Wasn't me. Is it?
Now there's noise. What is that? You don't hear that, Eddie.
I hear typing.
That might be you. Maybe. Did you stop? Does it stop now?
Yeah.
Stop now.
What was that?
Okay. I think it might have been the tech guys. They're listening in. So quiet down, tech guys.
Yeah, I didn't hear it.
Talk about interrupting a great fucking story. I'll continue, but who's ever doing that better stop. So I owned up that. She's like, well, wouldn't you want that? I'm like, well, that's what I said. And then she's like, you called me a Bible thumper. And I'm like, you are a Bible thumper. And she literally
no denying that.
Yeah, and she's like, well, what does that mean? And then she also said, she's like, you said my only job to make my guys' dicks hard. That's what you said. And it was happening so fast. I'm like, I know I said that. I know I said that. I know I said that. Like, I said that when you're like, if you said if websites say somebody's attractive, if you like put pictures of girls, you can't say Ray Rice was a scumbag for knocking out his fiance or whoever. And she kind of twisted what she's like, no, I said this. Like, she phrased it in a way that actually made sense. I'm like, well, that's not what you said, or you were misquoted. So I stand by that. So there's a lot of back and forth with her saying things. The only thing that she was definitely wrong, she's like, you guys were obsessed with me before the Van Talk stuff. She just didn't have any clue. It's like, no, we weren't. We barely talked about you. You're talking about a throwaway comment on a podcast that you got so mad about. We also had a major differentiation, and I told Dan this. She said she never brought her kid on College Game Day. I don't believe that. She's like, find the footage. I don't know how we're going to find the footage, but that's the only reason we were talking about the kid. That was the whole genesis. We were doing college football pick'em, and it came up. Sam Ponder was like, get the kid off the show. She made it sound like we were going outside and stalking the kid. Like, the kid, we should have no idea who it is, and we were going outside our way to talk about the kid. I find that impossible to believe. I'm almost positive she was holding a kid on College Game Day a lot, and that's what brought it up. So we continued to go, and then she's like, you came at me. It was the worst year of my life after Barstool Van Talk got canceled. She's like, all the stoolies are attacking me. She's like, you still sell a T-shirt with my face on it. I'm like, what? And we have the clown nose T-shirt of Ponder, which I guess is still up on the website. And that's when we got into the second part. I'm like, here's the thing though, Sam. I kept quiet after you went public with Barstool Van Talk. I was told to be quiet, and I didn't care about the show. Everyone knows I was not thinking Barstool Van Talk for ESPN was the best move for Barstool. But Dan wanted it, PFT wanted it, so I went along with it. And when she posted that shit, the immediate reaction within Barstool was, let's try to save it. So Dave, be quiet. don't fire back, don't return fire to fire. So for like a week, I just sat and said nothing. When I really turned the screws on Sam Ponder, as I recall, is she tweeted out that I wished her unborn children were aborted. And I never said that. And she's never produced evidence of it, of us saying it, me saying it. And she's convinced we like scrubbed stuff from the internet, which we didn't do. She's like, you took it down. It's like, I never said it. She's convinced, I think, that I did. I think she listened to something, maybe got confused. I never said it. So it was it's like, all right, Sam, I've stood by like the stuff that I've said and, saying you got to stop being a prude and slut it up and all this stuff. You're now saying that's a compliment. We didn't attack you prior to Barstool Van Talk. There wasn't some Sam Ponder obsession. That's just made up. She really had no idea what we did. I'm like, we always talk crude and crass. She's like, oh, well, I didn't know. It's like, well, you kind of opened Pandora's box when you put that tweet out. And I said, it's like, you canceled or got canceled. And she's like, well, I didn't cancel. It's like, okay, semantics. You started the process of getting a wildly popular podcast canceled. It wasn't like me saying, hey, go attack Sam Ponder. You, for better or for worse, you have every right to say what you did, but there's blowback because people were fucking pissed. She also denied, I'm like, you used the word slut when I did on Twitter a lot, and then you issued an apology and deleted. She's like, I never did that. That's just a fact that she did it. I don't think Sam, anything she said in our conversation, she was intentionally not telling the truth or thought she believed, I think, what she was saying. But it's like a known fact. You apologized and deleted your slut tweets. So that's a known fact. And around we went. And it was a little bit like, you made my life so miserable and how could you attack me? I had nothing to do with the show getting canceled. And she was mad at ESPN. I'm like, well, ESPN said it was you. Like, you're the person. We had a little back and forth with her agent was involved, who is ironically, strangely now, like, kind of works with Erica. I don't know, works with Erica, but Nick Khan, who is her agent, or was, I should say, because now he's the president of WWE. The story goes, Nick Khan was the one, and there is, I guess, back and forth whether Sam brought it to Nick Khan or Nick Khan brought it to Sam, the clip of us saying it to start the process, because I don't think Sam had any fucking clue it was said. Somebody had to be like, hey, they're hiring this, look out. I've heard it's Nick Khan. Nick Khan is a super powerful agent, president of WWE. He's somebody who I met with like 2 months before this all went down, and he was super like gracious to me and like, I respect what you guys do. After this entire Sam Ponder thing went down, he invited me through a secretary to a boxing match at Madison Square Garden. I never published the email exchange because I actually asked Erica, I'm like, I want to publish this. She's like, just don't. It's not worth the fight. But it was essentially like, you're inviting me to go sit with you at this fight? Do you think I'd not know what just happened with like the Sam Ponder? Do you always like invite fucking people that you go stab in the back to sit next to you? I sent that email. They're like, what are you talking about? That didn't happen. It's like, and I sent the clip from the article outlining it. So when I brought up the Nick Khan, I'm like, your agent brought it to you? She's like, if that's true, I'll have to speak with my agent. So there's a lot of facts.
Wait, what exactly did he bring to her, though? Sorry, explain that one more time.
It was reported that when Barstool Van Talk became public knowledge, Nick Khan, the agent for Sam Ponder, powerful agent, was like, hey, Sam, are you aware of Barstool Sports and what was said about you? Like, and presented in the information to her, which she then tweeted out. That's one version of events. The other version of events is Sam created a file and then gave it to Nick, and he went to ESPN being like, how could you hire these? Somewhere they're involved. She acted like, no, the agent wasn't involved at all. He 100%, and her, who initiated it, there was involvement. Her overarching theme was, I just had to say what I had to say, but I can't be held responsible for getting it canceled. You made my life a living hell for no reason, and it was unfair. It's like, well, and I did say to her, I'm like, there's a very big difference. I always own up to what I say. And it could be semantics to you, Sam, but I did definitely say, it's there. I've never denied it, that you got to stop being a prude and slut it up. I've also said, if you've listened to anything that I've said in the past about it, I never held Sam Ponder responsible for the grudge. Meaning, She had every right. We took an unprovoked shot at her, and that's how she did. Where I turned, she started making shit up. Like, there's a big difference between that statement, talking about her on College Game Day, versus me saying, I hope her unborn children are aborted. I know I didn't say that. Now, there's never been proof. Like, I've said a million things, but have anybody around this office ever heard me, like, use the word aborted? I generally say the same words over. It's just not something I'd say. So I'm like, that's when I had the problem. You never admitted it. I didn't say it. And that's when it's like Sam Ponder's a liar, because you're saying these things, tweeting them out, and around and around and around we went. By the end, it was sort of civil. Like, she said what she had to say. I was fighting back. Like, I had my version of events, which I think is correct. She had hers. And I did say, like, when it's all said and done, I'm like, I respect you for literally attacking me. Like, she came out and was fucking ready. I got a text from Will Compton for the boys. He's like, I heard you got in a pretty fucking heated, awkward, weird situation with Sam Ponder at Catch. I'm like, how the fuck did you know that? Because he's boys with Colt McCoy, who I guess was with her, and was like, oh my God, this is like a wildly awkward scene. I mean, it was just her and I, like, jaw to jaw for a fucking hour.
I mean, you telling that story for 15 minutes and then dropping Colt McCoy right now is pretty unbelievable.
Yeah, I guess he was there. Like, I didn't even know. I was so caught off guard. Like, the girl I was with went to the bathroom, and she fucking just pounced on me. And again, I had no clue. I didn't recognize her at all, which I kind of like in hindsight. I was looking at her like, oh, what did I fucking do here? Like, what is this going to be? And you called me a slut. I'm like, oh, what? Why would I call you? It's like, I don't even know you.
You had nobody in the back of your mind that you thought that was? Like,
I was
not
clueless. I was clueless. I was totally clueless. The other part that she said, which I didn't have firsthand information of, I talked to Dan at PFD. She's like, if you had a problem with me, why don't you reach out? And I'm like, I'm almost positive we did to try to save the show, and you want nothing to do with it. Dan, I went to him the next day. He's like, she reached out like a year after the thing happened. PFT's like, yeah, we tried to reach out and just got nowhere. So I don't know if that part's true, but she was more than willing to talk now. I don't know if ESPN would let her come on. My overall take was my respect for her increased because she was willing for this confrontation. And I believe she believed everything she's saying. I think we have very different interpretations. Like, we just didn't consistently attack. Like, if this was Erin Andrews, I would be like, yeah, you were like an ongoing theme, and I could get how you'd hate my guts and think. Sam Ponder was like I didn't even know I talked about her. So she just didn't know what we did. She really thinks we had like a vendetta before she ever mentioned Barstool. Like, every day we were hammering Sam Ponder, and that's just not true.
Yeah, I think that's the first takeaway, is that she thought there was like a big, long-standing joke there, but that's not true because, I mean, listen, back in those days, you know, a silent reporter, like, that's what kind of went up on the blog, right?
Correct.
That's what, like you said, Erin Andrews, doesn't matter who it was, Jenny Dell, Heidi Watney, it's just on and on it goes. Like, that's what Barstool covered back then.
And I did call her kid a rat kid. She's like, what would you do? I was like, get your rat kid off game day. But again, to me, to take that so personal, like, yeah, it's not nice, but like, I don't know you, and it's just such a throwaway, and that's how we talked. It's like, I don't know you fucking kid at all. But yes, she didn't get that. She was convinced somehow that we had zeroed in on her, and like every day, it wasn't Barstool Sports. It was like Barstool Sports versus Sam Ponder 24/7.
So she was just with McCoy. She wasn't with Christian, her husband, nothing like that?
I don't know who the fuck she was with. I don't know where she came from, Eddie. It was like Field of Dreams. I was walking out, and next thing I knew, I was like, Mick, like, cut me. Like, I was just in it. It all happened so fast. I actually think I went back because I thought the girl I was with showed me her phone. She was making a reservation to go home. Like, she's like, I'm out of here. This is nuts. And there's no way she didn't know the girl I was with doesn't know Barstool history. I'm like, no, that's like an arch enemy. Like, I just had a very big moment. She's like, what are you talking about? It's like, I can't even get into it. But I think they were sitting right next to us. And because when I went back to get the girl, there was she was at the table next to us. I didn't notice Colt McCoy. I just went fucking 15 rounds. So I was like staggering around. It's a Dave Portnoy move to ambush somebody like that. Like, she had the upper ground right off the top because I didn't know who she was, and she was fucking ready.
The thought of her popping out of the coat check room and just coming after you and just getting like 18 blows on you before you could even blink is an unbelievable like image.
On a sleepy Tuesday night, really, when it wasn't like an overly crowded, like a nice, easy dinner. I'm walking out, coat on, ready to leave, and ding, ding, ding. Like, all time. I've never had anyone really do anything like that. I've had someone throw a drink in my face at a bar and then run away. I don't even know who did it to this day. But I've never had anyone just attack. And she had however long. She fucking hates me. I don't know what she'd say now. I think there was an element like how I'm like, hey, I respect you for attacking me and at least saying what you say. I didn't back down either. I wasn't like changing or backtracking. It's like, I did this. It was crude. That's how we talked. You talk similar. Like, you're wrong here. You called me a Bible thumper. I'm like, well, you are. And so there was no back down. And I think she saw, maybe I could be wrong. Like, okay, maybe he's a little different than I think he is. But who knows? It was fucking
Well, you
wild.
have to respect her, though. You have to, because like you said about the agent, you hate that more than, you hate the ESPN person who hates us in real life, but then behind your back, they see you at an event, and they're like, oh, hey, Dave, how's it going? Love Barstool.
Totally.
She didn't do that. You got to,
she came out swinging. So I respect that. You're right. That's one of my all-time pet peeves. Now, she's so far gone, but I wouldn't, if you told me you're going to be the same place as Sam Ponder, do you think she'll come up to you and like get in your face? I'd be like, no chance. 0.0.0. Like, I was like, maybe I get in her face, probably not, but that, I respect it. I respected the move, and it wasn't, there was a chance when this was going on, I thought it was never going to end. Like, in the beginning, we were just talking over each other. She was talking, I was talking. She's like, I'm talking right now. I'm like, so am I. And we were just like, back and forth. To finally, I let her say her version. I'm like, all right, you can go, but I get my response. It was like, almost like a presidential debate. It's like, okay, you get your 5 minutes, but you got to give me my 5 minutes. You can't get your 5 and then walk away or talk over me. So it just progressed and progressed. It ended the last line of the thing. And it had simmered down because we were doing it for an hour. It's like, all right, I forget what it was. She's like, if you ever want to talk or something, like hash it out, I'm willing to go on. Like, I'll just send you a T-shirt, meaning like the Ponder. And I got like, she like laughed at it. And she also made it seem like the T-shirt with the clown nose was like the worst thing of all time. I mean, who cares?
Are you, like, is the hatchet kind of buried though?
I would be I haven't talked about her in forever. Like, I'll just throw I respect her doing it. I wouldn't go out of my way to trash her. And if I did trash her or something happened, I would probably like tweet directly at her and be like, I want this on the record that this is how it went down. Because I know she thinks her version of events is probably correct. Even though it's wildly unfair to be like, I had nothing to do with the show getting canceled. I just tweeted those tweets like right when it launched. It's like, well, yeah, that led to it being canceled. And there's a lot more going on. And I've talked to PFT, I've talked to Big Cat, and PFT, when I told him this, his eyes like popped. She's like, either she's crazy or she's just lying. Like, I have a very like certified different version of events where she was like instrumental behind the scenes as well. And that's a big thing. She's like, everything I did to get that show canceled, I did with those tweets. She's like, there was no me going behind the scenes. There was none of it. The message from ESPN was very different. Very different. So it's like, and she's like, well, then they're fucking scumbags, basically. She didn't say scumbags. It's like, well, then screw them. They fucking hung me out to dry.
Yeah, it's kind of hard, I guess, to take her at face value on that, knowing that she had so much of the other stuff kind of, misconstrued, right? But I don't know. It's so long ago,
like
too.
Dave's misconstrued. I don't think I am. Like, all the versions of events, I think are exactly. I'm sure I said stuff before she made up the abortion thing, but that's what I know that's when I was like, okay, Sam Ponder's a liar, hold the signs, the shirts. It's like she's just making up blatant falsehoods. And it's not only that. When you tweet that, like Dave Portnoy said, he wants my unborn children to be aborted, like people then run with that like fact. And it's just, she never, like I demanded when I'm like, prove it, show it. I didn't say it. She never took back. She never did anything. And in the conversation, she's like, you said it, but you erased it. It's like, that's just absolutely, I'm like, I swear on anybody's life that you're wrong. Like that didn't happen.
Yeah, and I don't know if you brought this up to her, but I think there's also an element to that. If that's not true, obviously you never said that. And if she can't prove that, she kind of ruined your life too, because everyone fucking posts that same fucking article, and that's a huge piece of every article.
Right.
Right?
Totally. Right. And
so, like,
again, I get it. It's in the
ways.
swamp, but where I take things far less personally than she did, the overall theme. And she's like, if you had a problem, I'm right down the street. She must live in New York. Talk to me. I'm like, well, you had a problem with me apparently for 3 years. And I didn't even know we had issues. So you went public before ever talking to us. So I don't know the reverse. Like you want us to talk. You got the show canceled. We didn't even know there was an issue till you brought it to the forefront. And then all hell broke loose. And I kept quiet, I know, for at least like 3 to 5 days while we were trying to salvage the show.
I think we got to get her on. Like, we have to make an attempt.
And I will say, I do not think there was an ounce of her that's like, I'm misconstruing facts or I'm not telling the truth. Like you don't get in someone's face if you don't believe what you're saying. And she believed it. I think she's wrong about a lot of the facts. Like, again, I said what I said. She had the right to hold a grudge. The abortion quote, I don't know where the fuck that came from or how she heard it. I'm sure her life stoolie's coming at her. But yeah, you were instrumental, whether you want to acknowledge it or not, of getting the show canceled.
Yeah, it just needs to be heard, because there's been so much, like I said, this built up a lot of the fucking, a lot of the articles, a lot of the hit pieces, and on her end, like, sure, I'm sure she did kind of take a hit from everything that she went through with Barstool, right?
Oh, 100%. I mean, no one had anything, I think, negative about Sam Ponder till this, and then you alienated our crowd in a huge show, and it really turned, I'm sure, a lot of people on it, no doubt. So she said it was the worst year of her life. That I believe.
There's got to be a stoolie or something somewhere that was that catch and has a picture of this.
Eddie, it was. And
Call your guys.
I think the catch people, I know they know me. I don't know if they knew her, but the host almost at one point kind of gave me a look like, do you need help here? Like, what is going on? It was wild.
That lived up to the hype. Yeah.
1 hour.
That lived up to the hype.
And people are like, was it really 1 hour? No, it was 1 hour. It was 1 full hour, maybe more, of two people in a mask standing at the bar going jaw to jaw.
It's hard to lock you down for anything for an hour, but an argument is probably the easiest way.
It was, I had to gather myself quickly. I did get water thrown in my face because I wasn't in that mindset at all. It was, okay, ding, ding, ding. When did this fight start? But Dave, you better fucking hurry up and get into the match because she's coming at you. Like I said, I think I got a standing 8 before I even knew what happened.
You walked into an arena, because I think the last time, I guess, we've ever seen you kind of toe-to-toe with someone was probably the KO Barstool rally.
Yeah, but I knew, you were right. That's me coming out. Right. That's like, okay, I came out of the locker room. This one, I was going on the bus going home. My mind was in a very different place. I had a couple drinks. It's like, okay, it's time to go home the rest of the night. Nope. Put on your fucking hard hat.
And I know you just recapped everything, but what was the main thing that you think she was stuck on the most? Like, what kept coming up the most?
Like attacking her kids, like mother, and like what kind of man like attacks the kids, and how would you like it if this was like your wife? That was kind of like you put me through hell for no reason. That was sort of the theme of hers, and the combo was like, well, I'm not going to deny what we said was crude, and like I probably phrase it differently, and that's when like you talk crudely too. You apologize, deleted. She's like, no, I didn't. But it's like, I don't know. It's hard for me to sit here and accept that you had nothing to do with it, even if you did nothing behind the scenes. You got a very popular show canceled by those tweets, and she's like, no, I didn't. It's like, well, you did. But she honestly didn't believe she had anything to do with it. She's like, I would never interfere with your right to run a business, and you've been successful. Like, you have every right to do that. I'm for that. But I am allowed to say my 2 cents as well. I'm like, you're absolutely allowed to. But stuff happens when you do it. Just like I'm paying, if you want to say the price or whatever, there's consequences to what you say. And the difference here is I'm owning up to it, I think, and you're kind of not.
Yeah, and I guess there's really no way unless we find every receipt to kind of, make up for that he said, she said. So
yeah,
it could be.
I don't know how she was adamant her kids were never on College game day. I don't have the proof that they were, but I just don't know why in the world we would have brought it up. I have an image of them in my head, but it's so long ago. She was adamant, never. She's like, find me the footage. It's like, well, how am I going to do that?
So that's a big part, I guess. But that's somewhere. Someone has that.
Yeah.
ESPN didn't get rid of that for sure.
Right.
So, but that's wild. I would definitely say that lived up to the hype of what you were teasing, because her going nose to nose, like that has to put everything in a different light. It just has to.
I respected her for I said that. I'm like, well, regardless how you feel about me, I respect you fucking getting in my grill mix here at Catch on a lazy Tuesday.
What'd you say, Michelangelo? You want to say something?
Oh, yeah. No, I will put out a graphic to all the stoolies out there. Anyone at Catch at 7:30 on Tuesday, any photos or videos, please submit to our email address, Dave Portnoy Show at
Maybe Colt McCoy has it.
Yeah, or just tell your guys to pull the footage.
Like it was also sent to me like in a fairly from Will Compton, like Colt McCoy, who I guess likes Barstool, was like, I didn't realize, like almost sort of apologetic, like, holy shit, I didn't understand what was about to happen. Like, I don't think he didn't understand that, Lex Luthor and Superman were about to like bump into each other at Catch.
Oh, no, that's a big one. I mean, if we're talking, let's kind of power rank these for a second here before we move on. Goodell's number one, right?
Yep.
She's got to be right there. If she gets the clown face treatment, you don't take that lightly.
She's far almost more personal than Goodell to a way who has never really acknowledged Barstool. This was this is a moment, I guess Goodell too, that really altered the course of Barstool. Maybe more than any. Well, no, there's a couple like the Churn and Sale hiring Erica, but Sam Ponder getting Part of My Take canceled. That changes. Like, who knows what happens if that show exists and becomes a big hit on ESPN? Who fucking knows? It changed the course of history for us.
Yeah, it really did. Wow, that was. We got to try to reach out at least ask to get her on, and we'll see next week. We'll see what we could do. But besides that, is there anything else to add if we want to move on, or?
No,
that's a wild one.
Yeah, that was it. I never dreamed it. It was a wild, wild event.